All right, everybody, welcome to the workshop of March 20th, the first day of spring. So, raining outside, would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, chair, where you at? That chair is sneaky, it gets away from you.
I don't know why you guys have such problems with these chairs. Good?
Yeah, it's all right.
Okay. All right, first off, we have a discussion as it's related to the Heritage Museum. Mr. Brown.
Yes. Just make sure you push your button so the mic comes on, and then release it. No, just leave it on there.
The work? Yep. I'd like to thank the Board of County Commissioners for allowing me to come here today. For those of you that don't know me too well, my name is Jeff Brown, the Interim Executive Director for the Montezuma Heritage Museum. I just started March 1st, so one of the first things I did was go through the paperwork of the museum to make sure everything is up to date and good. And I ran across the lease put forth by the county commissioners, and I realized that it expired on December 31st of last year. And so my purpose is to come before the county commissioners and ask for a new lease of 5 years with the same terms and conditions. So nothing changed, just extended for 5 years. The support that the county commissioners have shown the museum and the Historical Society is, we couldn't have done it without your support. So we are very grateful for that you've shown us. Geez, I don't know what else that you might want to know. Any other questions? Or?
I don't really have any questions. I think that was signed in 2018, which obviously none of us were up here at that time, but can we get, or do you have access to that, Ian?
I should be able to pull the old lease. I haven't looked at it. I wasn't sure what we were going to be discussing today, and so I can pull the old lease and we
Okay.
can look it over, and if we need to make any adjustments, I'll connect with you, and otherwise we can put it in front of the board and they can get it signed.
Okay. Yeah. It's, any other questions, comments? Oh, status of the museum. It's been a while since that's been given to the board, and the status of the museum is we're now open. The official opening was October. The status of marketing and advertising, I just applied to a marketing and advertising grant for Mesa Verde country. So hopefully that'll be coming through and I'll be able to get the ball rolling there. I expect to make a really aggressive campaign to let people know that the museum is there. So will be signs on Main Street, the advertising in Mesa Verde country, the radio, cover the bases to get the word out to make it self-sufficient. The exhibits, one of the reasons why I was brought on was to help divide the workload. So I'll be focused on administrative, fundraising, and all the those type of duties, while Barbara Stagg will be focusing on the exhibits. That way we could increase the output of getting those done. So, any other questions? Or
Jeff, as long as I have you here, what's your email?
my email?
Yeah.
It's director@montezumamuseum.org.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah, sure.
I have no questions. I
No,
did talk to one of your
we'll take a look at that.
board
All right.
members.
All right, thank you.
All right.
Yeah, thank you, Jeff.
Okay, the next two items we are going to skip because we have some illnesses. And we'll go down to the discussion for the LMN properties, Mr. Englehart.
How are you today?
Good, how are you?
Good. So, it's been 5 years since we've renewed our lease with L&M, the hay camp pit. So tomorrow I was gonna come in and bring the contract in. It's the same words that we've had over the last several years since I've been here. But they did raise the price, 12 cents per ton for the next 3 years. And that's when this contract expires on a 3-year. We used to just do 2-year contracts when Eni was alive, but they went to 3, and I've been happy with that, the landowners have. So this is good for 3 more years.
So did you, I sent you an email asking some questions. So you said it's 12 cents it increased?
12-cent increase. It was
So
a $1.20 for the last 5 years. Now it's
$1.20 to
$1.32.
$1.32.
Yes, sir.
So what do we have stored up there, Rob? And do you have an approximate, I know you don't have an exact, but do you have an approximate tonnages? Because like I said in my email, I think it's extremely high when we look at it. I mean, if we look at the area sales price of $10 a ton, which is probably mostly 3/4 up there.
We've got probably right at 60,000 ton of 3/4 stockpiled and 2,000 ton of 3/4 inch chips stockpiled.
How much?
2,000.
2,000? Okay. So, I guess what I was saying is that's at $1.32, that's 13.2% royalties. And obviously at our crushing cost is even less than that. It makes it even a higher percentage for royalties, which is what I'm struggling with.
Subject to negotiation.
So, I mean, obviously, it sounds like we've got 60,000 tons of material already up there that's already been crushed, that we kind of have to get off the hill one way or another.
We have 1 year to do it, yeah.
So the question that I asked also was, this expires in the end of April.
Yes.
So we have until the end of April, whatever we get off of there is at $1.20 a ton, correct?
I guess technically, yeah, without this contract being signed, it would still fall
Well,
back
it
to
still
that.
would, it would still apply under the $1.20.
Right.
So basically a month.
No.
I guess, and again, it's a position of 3 and you, I mean.
Well, okay, I don't know
I
why
struggle
you went
with
off the
the-
hill over this, but here's what you're spending on mag. You're spending 88 cents a gallon for mag, and you don't blink an eye at $488,000 a year for that. And that's a commodity too, just like
Sure.
gravel is.
What would you say that was?
It's 88 cents a gallon this year. Last year it was 71 cents and 83 cents, so we spent $488,000, I mean, $378,000 last year in mag chloride. And you don't blink an eye at that.
Are we getting, where do we get those costs from?
That's our direct cost, that's our cash cost, we have to pay for it.
I get it, but,
Yeah.
I mean, as far as bidding those out, that's the best that we can do.
Yeah, that's just GMCO and,
Correct.
the
So
other-
I guess what I'm saying is that we have other pits that we can utilize that don't
yeah,
cost
but
us
not for this type of
$1.32.
material. We don't have this type of material. And we went through this for
I know.
8 years since I've been here, and you know this type of material is very good to us. It's good for chip sealing. We make our chips as we scalp the 3/4, so we don't have to pay an exorbitant price to crush chips. We get that product on the ground that holds the chips down instead of letting them slide off. There's a good reason for having that pit besides just
No,
like it,
no,
so.
I'm not.
And I don't think we should give it up.
Discounting that they're different pits for different reasons and different locations. I get
Anyway,
that.
going down, oil. We pay $750,000 a year for oil to chip seal. That's $659 a ton.
But you're saying we have to sole source that.
No, there's another one in Albuquerque, it's just
Okay,
the same
well, are we
price.
getting better cost? I mean, are we getting the best cost that we possibly can?
Yeah.
It's where I'm going.
And I'm
It's-
getting
it's
the best,
what I'm trying to
I
get
can
to.
beat anybody's price in Montezuma County out of that pit too.
Are
So,
we talking oil or are we talking,
we're talking oil to chip seal with.
okay.
And we pay $125 a ton for asphalt to patch the roads with. See where I'm going? It's just a commodity. We pay, everybody gets a little bit of the pie. So $1.25 a ton or $1.30 a ton is just part of the cost of working out of that pit. And I spend probably, last 2 years, I've spent roughly $48,000 in 2021. This year we spent $42,000 in hay camp pit. That's not even a percentage of what we pay for oil.
For chips?
Yeah.
No.
So
No,
I
the
have a hard
oil's-
time
the
with this
oil's
discussion
totally
because
different.
it's not a
Totally
cost thing. There's something else going on. What is the reason?
I don't like paying royalties when we have our own pits.
We don't have the right type of pits to do the work we're doing out of that pit.
Okay, so what's the difference? So
Well,
if you're looking at a type 6,
class
you
6,
can-
is-
you
class
can-
6 is the word, but,
class 6,
yeah. I can make class 6 spec with lower PI out of hay camp than any other pit. Or you can go not enough PI, like Ormiston, and not have gravel on your road.
Right.
It'll just fall off. So this
so
pit
do you
gives
have
us-
the analysis so that we can compare them side by side so that we can actually look at that?
Absolutely.
Okay, well,
But it
good.
still doesn't change the fact the owner wants $1.30 a ton.
I
to work their
understand
pit.
that. I
So-
understand that. And
So
like I
does
said,
does it really matter? Because what you're mad about is the $1.30 a ton.
that's exactly correct, because you're
So-
paying a royalty when we have our own pits.
All right, whatever. I'm
that's what
telling you
it
what
is.
it costs to do business, and it
I
costs
understand
anybody in
that.
that pit the same price. We're
I
not getting
understand
any
that.
better deal or any worse, so,
Understand that.
okay.
Okay, what else?
And you're comparing apples and oranges when you talk to different pits, so.
If you're setting up the same product,
No, see,
because you
not a-
can be
it's
on
not
the
a
coarse
gradation.
side, you can be, right, it's
a
not the
clay.
gradation.
It's a PI,
Right,
plastic index.
right.
And that pit gives us the best material possible. I know counties that would kill to have our pit. I know private owners that would have a desire to have our pit and laugh all the way to the bank at $1.30 a ton. So it's not a bad price, Jim.
Okay,
So anyway, over the last 8 years, we've crushed about 609,000 ton out of that pit. If you took that and worked it down, that's about $56,000 per year budgeted for that pit for materials. Now, we had 3 years where we actually paid $125,000 in 2016, $154,000 in 2018, and $110,000 in 2020 for extended that pit. 1 year was DOLA, all 11 miles of Goodman Point were rebuilt, paid for by DOLA. The next one was the Forest Service Road that goes up the Dolores Norwood Road to Dolores County, paid for by the Forest Service. DOLA was also there on another job we did that paid for all that extra. The last one was 7th Street down by the high school that we wanted to get built. We took that out of that pit. All that matched what we needed to build those roads. We wouldn't have built those roads without that pit. They wouldn't be done. So that cost us some money that year. We had to pay a little more, but we were reimbursed with our contracts. Then if you go to our cost to crush is $262 a ton, not reclaim, just crush.
right.
And you add $1.20 to that. We crushed over the last 8 years, 609,000. We spent about 2.3 million. That would have cost us on the open market $6 million. That saved the county taxpayers $3.7 million to do the work we've done over 8 years. We couldn't have done that without that pit. Even if it's $1.30, $1.20, $1.10, we have to pay somebody to use the pit. We don't own it. It's just a fee, just like buying the oil, just like buying the mag. It's just a commodity. So we did that, and then if we open up another pit, we're gonna have to travel further than we do. It's a centrally located pit for a lot of activities we can do. Ormiston's clear out there in Dolores County. Manx is over there. It's a good pit, but it's only for gravel roads only. No chip seal, no paving on it, just gravel. And McCallum's about the same way.
So what's it cost us per mile to move it,
To move what?
to move the
Material?
product? Yeah,
I don't know. I can get that number for you. I'll work it out for you. But I do know it's in the center of our world. And
No,
we
I-
can bounce in and out of that a lot cheaper than we can haul it from Ormiston or Mancus or.
yeah. And I get that Armisen, you're using mostly clean chips for,
No,
different.
No,
or chip sealing or whatever you
No.
said. No, you're not?
No, we use Ormiston, we build a base rock, it's 1.5 inches minus, we put it down. We will put 3/4 on and then chip seal or pave over that. It acts as a good barrier for water, but only in that north country, not down in this country. We use our material from hay camp to do that. We cannot do that with Mancus or McCallum's, too much PI in it. So, and then we also use Ormiston to put the 2 layers, bottom and top, middle of chips, and then cover it with hay camp rock. Has to be chipped with hay camp or it wears right off.
Okay.
So all I'm trying to say, Jim, is there's a lot of reasons for the pit, and it's worth $1.30 a ton.
Rob, I get it. We're gonna have to sign this because we've got 62,000 tons estimated up there right now that's already crushed.
Yeah, we need
Yeah,
it for, we
and
need
we're
it
gonna
to-
have to get that off of there no
This
matter
county needs
what.
that pit for, you and I are gone, as long as it'll last.
Every pit out there is valuable.
Yeah, I mean, you
Every
can't
one of
hardly
them,
get a
all
pit
4 of
anymore.
them that we're working
To
on.
give one away now would be suicide. So,
I'm just, and I'm not saying that we're getting rid of it. That's why I wanna know what's up there, because we already have that amount of tonnage that's crushed.
yeah,
We gotta get it out of there.
yeah, I have a year,
Yeah.
but I don't want to haul it all out of there this year.
No,
Yeah.
So,
you won't haul it all out of there this year.
No, I
I
plan
think
on it.
our last conversation, it could, well, who knows?
Who
You can't.
knows, yeah,
You
exactly,
can't.
who knows, so.
I'd like to say people know, but we could have a catastrophic event tonight and it would be different. So I get that. I'm just saying, on a best case scenario, have it out of there in 3 years. Or you could have it out of there in a year. But,
It's a pit that's gonna last so long, and then when it's done, we're gonna wish we had another one just like it, so,
okay,
I know that.
well, that's my
And it might
hope.
be 20 years from now, and I'm not even alive anymore. And I hope that pit's still going for this county, because it's been a tremendous asset to this county.
So you don't have any idea what the life of that pit is?
We kind of calculated it in 2018, and we know how we was taken out, but there was about 25 years left
Okay.
in 2018, yeah, at the rate we were going then, but we've backed off. And I've tried to hold that to a minimum. I mean, we have our reasons for using it, but we have other pits, like you said, and we try to keep that price down. But other than those big DOLA jobs and stuff, we try to hold it about 50,000 a year out of that pit.
So would it be a reasonable suggestion based on if everything is standard, not any catastrophic events or something that just happens? And I realize that when that happens, then all bets are off. To minimize it to about 10,000 tons a year? Does that sound about, kind of sounds like that's about what you're doing anyway, right? I mean approximately, not, I'm just saying approximately.
I would say that's a little light,
Oh, was it?
yeah,
Okay.
that's a little light. I would think, if you really wanted to really squeeze it down and just use it for chips or only on paved roads, you'd probably get it down to 15 or 20,000 a year at a maximum. But it works good for other roads too in that area, so you go in gravel roads with it, so. It's just one of them really diamond in the rough pits. It's one of these pits that really works.
So your
for us.
number's more like 15 then than 10?
I'm not gonna
I mean,
commit to that, I
guessing.
don't know.
And I guess
Yeah.
we're guesstimating right
Yeah.
now.
It depends on what you're doing, and where you're at, and what you
Right.
need. Like, last year, we didn't want to use 40,000 ton out of McCallum, and we did. We put it on these roads out there on, west of Cortez and down in the South Valley. We didn't have to haul it from hay camp, so we used that. So we didn't want to use 40,000 out of that pit, but, you know, that's what we do. We fix these roads, so.
Okay. All right.
So anyway, we need to get this signed. so we
This
get
is
this
the
in, and
standard agreement. Nothing changed on it.
just the price.
Yeah.
Yep. So,
Okay.
you done? Good? Okay,
You
I'll be
good?
back tomorrow then and sign it tomorrow?
I don't think you need to come back.
Okay, you have a copy of it, Travis?
It's here, yeah.
Okay.
Ian-
I have a copy too.
You got
Ian's-
one?
yeah, we'll
Ian's
make
looked
sure.
at it. It's the same contract, so I mean, unless you want to come back, but I don't
No,
think you
no,
need to come
if
back.
If we're good today, I'm fine tomorrow. If you guys want to do is close up business, okay?
No.
Okay,
I have a quick question.
sure.
What are we doing with P?
Oh, P. Well,
I,
P,
I know I had to shock your mind with that big
By the looks of
situation.
the people out there, we're gonna have to start selling tour tickets.
yeah, you know, sometimes Facebook's kind of neat and sometimes
Well, first of all,
draws
it's not a,
looky-loos,
it's
you
not
know,
a
so-
sinkhole.
No, not
It's
anymore.
it's a washout.
It was for a little while
It
there.
is not
That's
a
the guy that
sinkhole.
called it in, you know, so, yeah.
Is that the guy in the car?
Yeah.
Well, it's not a sinkhole.
No, it's no longer a sinkhole. It is a open cut, and it's about 20 feet wide, and it's running a lot of water through it right at the moment. So we're on hold while we are locating pipe. We're looking at 3 different types. We're looking at culvert. We're looking at box culvert, concrete reinforced, and we're looking at poly pipe like we saw at CCI where you snap it together. Will last forever. And we're looking at different varieties of that. So we're looking at lead times, we're looking at availability, and we're looking at price. So we're looking at lead time first before price. We want to see how far out it is. If it's quick and we can afford it, we'll go with that plastic if we can, because we won't have to do it again. So,
Is there anybody around here close that even supplies that?
yeah,
Or do you know?
we buy it out of Contact through Alamosa, our supplier, our culvert supplier out of Alamosa.
Oh.
So Albuquerque has it. We also called Snap Tight, company that I've seen over the years, and they make a very good product, plastic snap together. It's harder to handle because you can't hardly get it to snap, but we've got options, we're looking at all of them. We're looking at starting the work. I would have started this week if the sun was shining.
That might be 2 weeks.
Yeah, maybe 2 weeks,
It might
but
be.
right now, a lot of the material we'll use for backfills underneath that chip seal, covered and shredding water, and I don't want it getting wet. So there's no sense of cutting back and building ramps in there to get in there, so.
Doesn't look like this week we're gonna get any relief.
No. And then we plan on benching back, and we'll put a new culvert in a new location. We'll divert the water, make sure all the water goes through the open cut, put the culvert in, then switch it around, and then put the new cut back, or the old cut back together. So it's just a matter of weather and when we can get our pipe to put it in, so. But we're working on it, so it's an ongoing process right now.
I went by the next day, and there was a lot of water going through there.
Oh, man.
All those northern drainages were coming right down that ravine.
Yeah, and that's one of the bigger tributaries. That's Alkali Creek.
Yeah.
It collects water from all around. It goes through there, then it goes through Road End where we want to build a bridge in 6 weeks,
Yeah.
and all
Yeah,
this is
we're
going
just
on.
downstream
Yeah.
Well,
a mile.
we could rename County Road P to County Road N
I
and
just
span
want-
it.
I just want to get it done before we have to close 2 roads and have a detour going north. So, so that's the next hurdle to cross. So, yeah. But it is what it is. And I'm sure happy that gentleman did not get hurt, and he was very fortunate and very lucky, and it was dark and it was foggy and you couldn't see, and he was going slow, and that was a very fortunate that he didn't get hurt. Yeah. So, yeah. But we're working on it as fast as we can get it. What else happened out there?
Kind of the weather.
Big rocks fell down off the Dolores Norwood Road.
I went and looked at that yesterday.
Wasn't too bad, but when you
No.
look what's left up there, you think, oh boy.
Uh,
Yeah. And then we got some down McCalmo. We couldn't move with the loader. We had to just shove them off the bank and up on the hill to get them out of the traffic lanes until we can handle it with a bigger loader, so.
Yeah, we went all the way down McComo Saturday, all the way to
Yeah.
Ismays. We went, obviously to P, we went to 184, and then I went up yesterday on the Dolores Norwood Road. And that's all I saw were those
Yeah.
in the,
We've been fortunate. That rain, that 36 hours of rain it did a lot of moisture, came down quick, and it dumped a lot of water. But today, the tributaries are running fairly well.
Yeah.
They're not overrunning. I went down McCamel, checked the slide, and it still appears to be stable. And it's not etching any more out in the bottom than it was, that I can tell. And it seems to be very good. So we're hanging in there, cross our fingers, so. It's too muddy to work in there right now, so I don't want to work in there, but so far, so good. So,
Yeah, that was my thought when I was out there. All this water's headed for McCalmo.
yeah, it was. Did you see the high water on McCamel?
Yeah.
I mean, it was way up there, and it's backed off now, but then again, we got this new one coming in today, tonight, tomorrow, Thursday. It's gonna come back up again.
Day,
So,
tonight,
4 days.
tomorrow,
4 days.
Thursday, Friday,
Saturday, and then I saw some out in the future Wednesday, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so. But we're holding good because the temperatures are good and everything's in our favor not to let loose of it too fast, so, yeah, at this point. So what was your question you want me to research for you?
I just asked what was your cost to move it?
Okay, I'll get you that. Or I'll work on it.
Yeah.
So, anyway, is that it?
That was it.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Rob.
Yep, see ya.
I see a lot of other people in here, but I'm not,
They're at the bottom of the list.
Oh, gotcha. You're here. I do. Okay, Sheriff, we've got 3 items now for the sheriff. First off, we'll start with the pay grade. We'll start off with the pay grade. Good afternoon.
Quack, quack, huh?
You want me to switch over for you,
Well, I'm connected. This is this brand new computer. Oh my God.
I gotta push
Okay.
I gotta
It is
push
so
my.
I don't want to hear any complaints here. I'm not. Just can't look at it or it does things, okay? Just turn it on and it does it.
Yeah. Why, are you gonna serve paper?
There it goes.
That looks pretty good, doesn't it? I didn't touch it.
I know you didn't.
I'm over here. Yeah.
The other one that, I did some revisions over the weekend and I haven't, it was after 4:00, so didn't get it in. Okay, so I'm gonna show you this and you can, if you want time to look at that, we've got time.
Yeah, we'll need time because you got it in at 4 o'clock and I was still driving home from Denver until
Oh, well, then that's a give me. For me.
way late.
Yeah, that's for me, okay. Thank you.
Fair enough.
Well, that didn't work, did it?
Yeah.
That's all right.
So we'll put this off for a couple more weeks now
Oh, wait a second.
because I haven't even had a chance to look at it.
Well, it's what we had discussed, but you go right ahead and look at it. I'm gonna shoot you this revision number 3, and maybe we can try for next week. Is that all right?
Revision number 3.
Yeah, we're looking at the top.
Sounds like
Yeah.
a rock song, doesn't it?
There's 3 at the end.
Yeah.
I just don't wanna go to 12. Single digits is good for me.
Well, there's Mambo number 5 and now there's revision number 3, right?
All right. I will move on.
Oh, that's pretty.
So the first grant, we obtained the Peace Officer Counseling Support Grant, which we have had for the last several years. We applied. This is a $25,000. It goes into, actually into 2024 as well, maybe into June, so. Okay.
This is your professional services basically paying for your
Well, yeah, it's
Psych-
professional services.
psychologist, psychiatrist.
That's all it is. Next one is a brand new, Department of Criminal Justice, grant program that, the
This is
state
criminal
created
justice.
for, opiate investigation, distribution, for drug enforcement.
Steve,
We applied for this. What is
Steve?
what? Oh,
your mic's not on.
well, I could hear myself, sorry.
Start over from the beginning.
Okay, this is a Department of do I want me to start all the way when I stepped up?
Yeah, you're good right here.
Okay, all right, just
Move
checking.
forward.
Okay, all right. So this is a brand-new grant that the state has offered to law enforcement agencies with, especially for our area in the Southwest, that is suffering from an increased amount of drug overdoses, as well as what we've been able to do both in state court and what's headed for federal court with 14 indictments so far that I can't talk about until the U.S. Attorney allows me to do a press release after the 15th one is arrested. I'm sorry. But we've taken a lot of drug dealers and traffickers off the street that come straight out of Mexico. So with this grant, this adds to it that the equipment part of it is actually part of the Axon interview room cameras and system that we need an upgrade in our interview room for these cases. The biggest thing, as you can see, is the software. Just the cost of the software alone. There's so many different things that go along with this for this software program. And the training is training for 4 actual, 2 detectives, no, 3 detectives and 1 intel analyst to actually operate and go into a lot of these databases and work with this equipment. So this grant goes through geez, I spelled 3 wrong, December 31st of this year. We just got it.
I don't know if you can talk about this, and this is just more, I'm just curious.
Sure.
What is the software? I mean, what kind of software are we talking?
Oh, it has a lot to do with not only the program itself, but the upgrade in our eForce RMS database system. That's where the largest amount is at. That it actually makes it a lot easier to obtain these interviews, and it goes directly into evidence.com through eForce, which is our RMS database system, and goes directly to the prosecuting attorney's office as well, and it goes out for discovery.
So it's almost a discovery sharing mechanism is really
Right.
what it is.
It saves a lot of steps and time
Okay.
with a lot of people having to have their hands on this. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I was curious.
Is this part of continuing with mandates that are set down for us or on top of us? Because
Well,
here's my concern,
what?
software, I see a $136,000 number, and all the software people that have been here giving us presentations in the last 6 months are saying, hey, by the way, plan for this software to be no good basically in the next 3 to 5 years. So, I
This
mean,
is
this is an
guaranteed.
ongoing,
Yeah, this is guaranteed for 5.
okay.
That's about
5.
as far as we can go. You can't even drive a car off a lot
So-
and expect it to last for 5.
I mean, this is just,
So having worked with the system, I know what the sheriff is saying. So, and correct me if I'm wrong, Sheriff. So the old way, the old system for our Axon cameras and the evidence system that we had in the interview rooms was really time-consuming personnel-wise.
yeah.
This should, my
Eliminate.
understanding, this should alleviate a lot of that because it's an automatic download.
It's immediate.
Once it gets.
So are they saying in
so-
the next
It's
5 years,
immediate.
then we'll get this grant again for double that amount of money? Because that's what it'll be.
Well,
should
more
just-
likely if the state offers this grant.
It'll just be an update.
It'll just be an
Problem is they
update
won't,
then,
and then we're gonna
okay?
get stuck paying for it twice.
It's not too bad. I mean, Axon is only asking for about $1,000 for the rest of that period of time after 2 years. And that's not bad. I mean, those upgrades are gonna happen to us. So, you
You
know.
know, And one thing I can say, I mean, and I'm sure that you guys have had experience with this as well, issues with discovery and getting discovery to other parties.
Yeah.
I mean, from a criminal prosecutor's perspective, I mean, that's the worst nightmare.
It is.
Because so often it doesn't get where it needs to go.
And then
And
it's-
defense attorneys grab onto that, and I mean, I can't tell you how many cases get kicked or dismissed or
Because they don't have.
pled down because of discovery issues. I
Right.
mean, as a defense attorney, that's something you just.
So
hold
we're
in on.
spending $136,000 to make the attorney's job easier?
Yes.
Well,
There you go. Way to go.
I'm just harassing.
And
Okay.
we're gonna spend $275,000 in 5 years.
Yeah.
Gets even better because they do all this stuff and then it's up to us to make it work and figure out how to make it work.
I guess that,
And
yeah.
to maintain it.
well, and really, what it's gonna do is it's gonna make the attorney's jobs easier. Because they're gonna have the information they need. It's gonna make it harder for, it's gonna make it harder for
How can
defense.
you make an attorney's job easier?
Well, you don't give them anything to get their hooks into, like a discovery violation.
You mean a prosecuting attorney, you don't want to help the defense attorney.
Yeah, the defense attorneys aren't gonna like getting discovery in a timely manner. Their jobs are gonna get harder because of this.
We won't have to worry about it in
Yeah.
5 years anyway.
I know.
Okay.
AI is
Exactly.
gonna take it all over, we will be,
Hey, I've done my part. Trying to do my best while I'm here, so.
I can just see
AI
this,
means something else in the veterinary world.
this will be
but-
275 in 5 years.
But I mean, ultimately, it seems like, Sheriff, if we don't get a grant, or if we don't get another grant to update this, I mean, then conceivably, we could default to an older system that would be more cumbersome, but less costly. I mean, there's nothing that says we would have to keep this
No.
system in place beyond 5 years when this grant expires.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be ideal,
Right.
but, I mean,
Would
man, this
be
must be a
ideal.
heck of a nice system.
It really-
For that kind of
it's
price,
pretty-
it better be.
It's pretty neat.
Huge
It's
amount
Well, if
of
it's through Axon,
software cost.
AI, artificial intelligence, man, I'm telling you.
Yeah, well, check all the data because nobody's doing that.
So, anyway, those are the grants that I have so far.
Quick question, that peace officers grant, the one previous,
What's that?
who funds that, the peace officer grant?
That's from the Department of Public Health, Colorado. It's a state
we
statute
look at that
that
one?
gives them
Yeah,
money.
the previous one.
Yeah, the previous
That
one.
was 20-some thousand, 28,000.
Yeah. Well,
The little one.
Yeah.
I don't,
25,000. Yeah.
25,000.
That one, right there. Yep. It comes through the State Department of Public Health. We have to apply for that. And it makes it a lot easier to have a year and a half. We were hoping that we'd get it for 2, just so that we don't have to redo it. It's been a real benefit.
mhm.
It really has for the officers and their families, so. Okay,
Okay.
I don't know how to get out of it now.
Turn the computer off.
I just turned it off. How about that?
We can get a software upgrade and it'll help you out.
No, it's actually a user problem. The thing's smarter than me. It is. So, all right.
Okay. We don't,
Thank you. All right, I'll see you tomorrow.
all right, thanks. I don't see Shak Powers, but I see Jim McLean.
Shak is tied up with a meeting till 2:30. And when I put that on the agenda, I was hoping we would be able to get him in at 2:30. So.
Well, since I had a conversation with Miss Matthews late, well, it wasn't late, it's like 2 o'clock Friday afternoon. Just as I was getting out of my meeting and getting ready to head home. Because we can add, I know it's not on the agenda, but any other business that may come before us, I would like to add that, and I know you're gonna
Come before us.
you're gonna kick me for this, but I think we should at least kind of hear what she has to say.
What
And
is,
it- And it might be, maybe, so that's why I'm trying to preface this. So it was basically due to a complaint that she got, a complaint that I had called to me Thursday or Wednesday, I think it was Thursday, probably the same day.
Yes, probably, yeah.
About a property south of town, which I know that we're already in the middle of dealing with through the land use code. So I kind of,
so can we table it till we can get it on the agenda? I mean, we've got pending litigation on the property. We don't have it on the agenda.
but it's, okay.
I mean, I don't know what it is, but it's always advisable to have stuff on the agenda. I mean, I know we have this provision that says we can discuss other stuff, but just for the purpose of transparency, my advice is, if you're gonna talk about it in a public meeting, get it on the agenda.
Okay. All right, we'll put it on the agenda for
This
next
is
Monday.
going where I think it's going. I think we need to be.
I don't normally work Wednesday. I'll be here.
I mean, it's something we could also put on a Tuesday meeting and discuss it. It doesn't necessarily have to be a Monday workshop.
No, it's fine in this setting. Like, I was gone from the county for an extended amount of time. I don't know what had happened with this property. So I just wanted to see where
And it might be worth a conversation just to give Ian a call, maybe, and that will resolve some of the issues, because I don't know what I can talk about and what I cannot talk about, and specifically in public. Because I know this property is a property that we're dealing with right now. But this was just another complaint. I have not seen anything else that came to me via email and a documentation unless you have.
I just have some pictures.
Yep. Okay. All right. All right, thanks. Well then,
Let's go recess.
yeah, we'll recess until, what'd you say, 2:30?
2:30.
Okay, so for 25 minutes.
Introduce Tim.
Sure.
Oh, sure.
So,
Is that all right?
no,
Why?
you sure? Make sure.
Yeah.
Tim Brown, he's, our emergency preparedness.
Yeah.
He's also gonna be training to do this.
Great.
Jim,
How you doing, Tim? Good to meet you. All right, which Brown family you from? Around here or?
I'm from Gold originally.
Okay,
Been here for about 4.5 years now. So.
oh. Good,
good to see you.
good. All right. Well, thank you. Okay. We'll recess until 12:30
2:30.
or
18:30, 16:30, 14:30,
14:30.
14:30.
All right, we are back at 2:30. We had our little recess, and now we have a discussion for the middle mile fiber infrastructure. We have Mr. Shak Powers from Region 9 and Mr. Jim McLean, our IT director. So with that, gentlemen, go ahead.
Good morning, commissioners, or good afternoon, or whatever we're at now, and thanks for having me back. I would like to give credit to the county, say what a great job you guys have done with drought mitigation since I left.
Yeah.
Good work on that, so keep it up. There we go. I am here to help. So while it's connecting to the display there, I'll give you a brief overview. The commissioners will remember that Region 9 applied to the National Telecommunications Infrastructure Administration for $66 million to bring the Wolf Creek fiber over into 160. We'll also be building it up 550 into Silverton, and then up 184 from Mancos to Dolores, and then up 145 from Dolores into Rico. I've been to this board and the municipal boards as well as the Empire Electric Board and talked about that. One of the requirements from the NTIA for the grant is a letter of credit. So this is verbiage from the NTIA application. Each applicant had to submit a letter from a bank meeting eligibility requirements consistent with those set forth and then it gives the statute, committing to issue an irrevocable standby letter of credit in the required form to the applicant. The letter has to, at a minimum, provide the dollar amount of credit offered and the issuing bank's agreement following the terms and conditions of NTIA's model letter of credit. Prior to issuing a middle mile grant award, each eligible entity must obtain an acceptable, irrevocable standby letter of credit. I mean, how many adjectives do they need to put in that? In a value of no less than 25% of the award amount. So Region 9 applied for 66.5 million, and therefore we'd need to secure a letter of credit in the amount of 16.6 million. Region 9 was able to submit a pre-letter of credit, and I have that if you'd like to see it from Municipal Capital Markets. The letter of credit is a contractual commitment by a lender to repay the NTIA in the event that Region 9 is unable or does not perform some or all of the requirements. The letter of credit is designed to protect the NTIA's investment in middle mile infrastructure. Letters of credit are one of the most secure payments instruments available, but can be relatively expensive due to bank fees. Because a lender would be promising to repay the NTIA on behalf of Region 9, should Region 9 fail to perform some or all of the grant requirements, lenders will only issue a letter of credit if they are confident that Region 9 can repay the amount that the lender would have to provide to the NTIA. Therefore, lenders treat letters of credit the same as a loan and require collateral. Because all of Region 9's member governments have listed broadband connectivity as a high priority in their community development action plans, and because the state constitution prevents those same member governments from securing such a letter of credit, Region 9 is taking on the role of grantee to the NTIA and the role of debtor for the letter of credit. And then you all are familiar with Article 11, Section 1 of the Colorado Constitution that says pledging credit of state, county, city, town, or school district is forbidden. Neither the state nor any county, city, town, township, or school district shall lend or pledge the credit or faith thereof directly or indirectly in any manner to or in aid of any person, company, or corporation, public or private, for any amount or for any purpose whatever, to become responsible for any debt, contract, or liability of any person, company, or corporation, public or private, in or out of the state. So that provision of the state constitution means that none of Region 9's member governments can secure a multi-year letter of credit. However, Region 9 on its own doesn't have the collateral necessary to procure a letter of credit in the amount of $16.6 million. So we've got a couple of different options we can pursue to try to get this letter of credit. And I've given 3 different breakdowns. One option would be to sign an intergovernmental agreement with the counties and Southern Ute Tribe that would include moral obligation language. And what this language would do is basically require that Travis, if there was a letter of credit, if there was a call on the letter, the administrator would go to the board and ask for money to make it whole. However, would have to very specifically say that there's no obligation on the part of the board to make it whole. The obligation would only be for Travis to ask for his percentage of that. Another option would be to form what's called a 6320 corporation. 6320 corporation is an IRS code that allows public entities to form a nonprofit organization that would function as a corporation that could sell bonds to repay this letter of credit, and so it wouldn't come from tax dollars. And then the third option would be that Region 9 could request a waiver from the letter of credit requirement and just say, hey, because we're a consortium of governments, we can't figure out how to put this together. So what I'm doing is going to all of the different boards and saying, what is your preference of doing this? So what I've got in front of you are 3 different options, and the first one I have is, let me see. This is what moral obligation language would look like. I'll show you the language, then the breakdown. If there was a call on the letter of credit by the NTIA, it would result in the debt service being depleted in part or in whole, and that debt service, if depleted in whole or in part because of a shortfall in the revenues of the pledge to the payment of the letter of credit, and the local government administrators, managers have received the certificate of the chairperson of Region 9, so the Region 9 chairperson would have to reach out to the county administrators as to the sum necessary to replenish the fund in the loan amount. The local government administrator manager shall prepare and submit to their respective boards a request for the appropriation of such sum. The requirement that the administrator manager make such a request shall be mandatory upon the administrator manager, provided that the decision to appropriate the funds requested shall be within the sole discretion of their respective boards. All sums appropriated by the boards for such purposes shall be deposited upon receipt by the Region 9 into the Debt Service Reserve Fund. Nothing provided in this exhibit shall be construed to create or constitute a debt or indebtedness of multiple year fiscal obligation of the government. So that's the language of it. Based on the feet of fiber to be constructed in each county, could break down the 16 million so that for Montezuma County, Travis would never be able to ask for more than $6.5 million. Now, to understand the chances of this happening are pretty slim because NTIA is a reimbursable grant. So in order for there to be a call, we would literally have to construct something other than the fiber network. I would have to approve those receipts. Laura would have to approve those receipts. Those receipts would have to be submitted to the NTIA, and the NTIA would reimburse it and then cry foul after the fact before there could be a call on the letter of credit that we did something with the money other than build the network. So that's one possibility, is asking for moral obligation language to satisfy one lender. Another lender has requested that we would form a 6320 corporation. So in that scenario, that lender would sell bonds, but the member governments would have to create an entirely different board to manage the 6320 and come up with bylaws and appoint members to the board and continue on in that way. The benefit of providing a 6320 is once that authority is created, then when you get ready to build out last mile to people's homes, or when you're getting ready for capital project funding from the CBO or for BEAD funding for last mile from the NTIA, you could continue to sell bonds to possibly come up with match requirements or something like that. The drawback from doing the 6320 is now you've got another board, you've got more bylaws, you've got all the headaches that go along with that. And also the debt service associated with that for Region 9 would be more costly, because with the letter of credit or with the moral obligation language, we would be putting up the actual network itself as collateral. So as it was built out, the amount that could be called would be less in any given scenario. So it would be more expensive to service the debt until those bonds were repaid on the 6320 side. The risk certainly under the moral obligation could be more, but it is cheaper. The third option is Region 9 could go to the NTIA if we're awarded the grant and say, look, our consortium is made up of governments. They can't have debt. They told us no to both of these other options, and we request a waiver. The benefit is, of course, there's no cost on financing a waiver. There wouldn't be any debt service over the 5 years, so financially that makes the most sense. However, then we're risking the entire 66 million because the NTIA may decide not to give the grant in that option. And I know that Montezuma County isn't going to make this decision today, and Montezuma County isn't going to make this decision alone. What we're asking for is feedback from each of the boards to say what your preference is, and then to try and take those preferences to the NTIA, either secure a letter of credit, trying to build a broadband authority with the 6320 corporation, or trying to get moral obligation language in an IGA and secure a letter of credit that way, or to ask for a waiver. Now, I would say from a common sense perspective that when the NTIA wrote these regulations, what they should have done, and what Region 9 will do, is require a performance bond from the contractors so that we don't have to worry about it not being built. Why they asked for a letter of credit instead of a performance bond was probably to give advantage to bigger companies like CenturyLink and Lumen, who can get a letter of credit all day long because they're worth billions and billions of dollars. But rest assured, if we get the grant, which we should know in 2 weeks, we will be requiring a performance bond from all of the contractors. So those are kind of the three options. Obviously, the board can't make a decision in a workshop, and overall, all the governments would have to agree to the same thing. But I'm open to questions or any initial feedback you have, and if you need more information provided, I'm happy to try and provide that for you as well.
So we basically, you're giving us basically three suggestions, pick from it, and then you'll take the feedback and go from there.
Correct.
Obviously, the easiest one for me is to request a waiver. So my question on the waiver is, what kind of a risk do you think we take of foregoing the entire 66 million by requesting the waiver? What kind of a risk? Is it a real high risk, a moderate risk? Is it low? What do you think that?
I think it's moderate. I don't think it's guaranteed. With the waiver, we have to come up with the circumstances that justify the grant of a waiver. And I think the Colorado Constitution provides pretty good language for justifying why governments can't come up
Should,
with that.
should have the waiver because we're not tying anybody's hands behind us to
Right.
doing something different. The second option, go ahead.
But there's the other three bullets that we have to provide to the NTIA that I'm still writing in that case is why granting a waiver is in the best interest of the federal government. And that's the piece I still have to come up with. And we also have to provide what we would provide in lieu of a letter of credit, which to me, the no-brainer answer is we would perform performance bonds or require performance bonds from our contractors, and we could name the NTIA as an extra insured for up to 25%
Sure.
in lieu of a letter of credit. To me, it's the exact same thing. If the contractor doesn't do what they said they would do, we go to the insurance company and we say, we want our money, and 25% goes to the NTIA.
Through the performance bond.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So then the first one of the moral obligation, which is then Travis would just come to us to ask?
Correct.
Well, that seems kind of, where's the,
What we said.
he's just coming to us to ask for something that we're not gonna give him anyway, so he knows what the answer is gonna be before he even comes and asks us, because how are we gonna, fiscally, how are we gonna, I don't understand that one.
I've looked at it. I think it's absurd, and I think it's a bad idea.
I do
Because what you're doing is you're casting an illusion that you might give something that there's absolutely no way you can give it.
And I'd like to expand further upon that. And, let's say for whatever reason, the shortfall happens in Archuleta County or in Southern Ute Indian Territory. And now I've got Travis coming to you for $6 million for something they screwed up.
Well,
Yeah,
and the reality is we don't have the money. I mean, there's no, there wouldn't even be any structure to do it. So it would just be semantics. I mean, I think that you would have a lot of people in here asking questions, wondering why we pledged this moral obligation that we had no way of fulfilling. I mean, if you say you're going to do something, I mean, there's some thought that you're going to consider doing it. And if you absolutely can't consider doing it, then don't do it.
They're assuming that government is moral
It's,
anyway.
yeah, I mean, so it's sort of, quite frankly, I don't even understand why the banks would put any stake in the moral obligation language, because the reality is all these governments would be in the same position. They wouldn't do anything because they couldn't do anything.
Right.
But,
So, that's why I said when I heard you, I'm like, okay, that doesn't make any sense at all. And then,
That's what was offered to us by one lender, so I'm
so
presenting the
out of the
options.
three options that you gave to me, just my opinion, the only one that really makes sense to me would be the request a waiver and go the other route, because then if you put it in the performance bonds, then you can tie it that way.
So, if I could just one second, Ian, if we ultimately end up pursuing the waiver, we will be asking for letters supporting our request for a waiver from all of the entities.
And that's just my opinion. I'll let these other two guys talk, but
That's
those-
the simplest and easiest
those
route
other
to
two
go.
didn't make sense to me at all.
and I can tell you, I've looked quite a bit over the weekend and this morning. I mean, this 6320 stuff just came up fairly recently, and so it's very complex. There's a lot of legwork involved. It's not something that we're going to be able to put together overnight. During the meeting that we had last week, La Plata and Archuleta pretty much said they don't have the time or the resources to head this up, so it would fall on Montezuma County. There's a lot of questions to be answered with this 6320. I mean, beyond just how you form it. There's questions having to do with the bonds. I mean, obviously, I did some research. They have used these in some other states. I couldn't find any example of a 6320 being used in Colorado. They used it in Washington, where they have a similar constitutional provision that prohibits extending credit by a government, similar to the constitutional provision we have. And they got around it in Washington, but
And Vermont also.
in Vermont. But it's a complicated entity, and it's a fine line you're going to walk. And I just think from a time perspective, I'm not sure we have the time to get that put together at this point.
I
So-
would say if we ultimately, everybody says we should do the 6320, I think we should delegate it to Faedra.
I think
You
that
have
we
fun
should,
with that.
I
You
think
are
that
so
we
lucky
should
'cause she's not here.
absolutely request the waiver and keep everybody's minds intact.
And as far as the waiver goes, why it's in the best interest of the federal government, I have a great idea here. The reason is because really the purpose of these fiber projects is to provide fiber to these communities. And if you put that in the hands of private enterprise, you run the risk of private enterprise jacking your costs up.
Well, or doing what they've done in the past with the EagleNet debacle
Yeah.
and things like that,
Yep.
where they say they're gonna build it, take the money and run.
I mean, there are certain things just because of the motives, and I don't want to get into a value discussion as to whether private enterprise or government should do these kinds of things, but the government's going to have certain values that private enterprise won't, and I mean, I think in theory, you could keep your costs lower for your
Well,
users.
we went through a similar thing, not counting the EagleNet thing, they did it with CenturyLink, if you remember, and CenturyLink took the money and then went and put it in the urban area where there was population,
Yep.
instead of building it in the rural
Right.
Colorado where they were told to go build it.
And that's the
where
risk.
Performance bond comes in.
Exactly.
And a board like this is going to want to serve its local constituents. It doesn't have that drive that private
To serve
enterprise
the
has
whole,
to get
yeah.
to where profit's maximized.
And just so I provide accurate feedback, and I'm thinking along the same lines, Commissioner Copenhaver, your thoughts?
I tell you that, anytime you get into some of these deals, it's just, that's crazy. Yeah, unless we can do the waiver thing, it's,
Okay. Commissioner Lindsay?
Yeah, I'm leaning to the waiver side of this. I have a question though.
Yes, sir.
Where does the Ute Mountain Ute Tribe play in all of this?
They got their own $40 million NTIA grant.
Right.
So they'll be
42.
building out,
42, yeah.
42.
yeah, they'll be building out their own network. All they're gonna wanna do at some point is connect into G.2, but they're not a part of this overall middle mile application.
I asked because I know I'm going to get asked.
That is the answer.
I think the waiver's a no-brainer here. I think anything other than the waiver I think the moral obligation language, you're creating a potential PR nightmare, and I just think it's.
What this shows with
you
the
know,
NTIA, when we all started going into this, is it absolutely shows the NTIA money was set up for private industry to go after, because the private companies and private corporations are the ones that can get the letter of credit. I don't think it was ever intended at the beginning for this kind of scenario, and I think that's what's happening, and they haven't readjusted their language to fix it, and now we're
Well-
sitting here trying to.
Hopefully you will, and I don't know where the other boards sit, but I'm probably thinking they're gonna request the same thing
I
that we
present to
are.
Archuleta County tomorrow. I have a pretty good feeling what Southern Ute Indian Tribe is gonna say. We're having a discussion with San Juan County later this week. So we'll take the consensus and we'll move forward with,
Let us
But-
know, yeah.
I feel the winds are all blowing the same direction.
Yeah.
It seemed as if at least one of the counties was more open to the moral obligation language than maybe a couple of the others.
That was Archuleta County.
That was Archuleta County, and and I think, my sense was they were looking at it purely from a standpoint of how do we get this done, and not really considering, arguably
Well,
the
and I think-
implications of what would happen.
That's what I asked,
I
what the
think their
risk level.
attorney
was.
was considering what is the actual legal risk to
Yeah.
the county.
Yep.
Well, the legal risk to the county is you have to ask, and if the board says no, the board says no. However, the risk to Region 9 is we're still on the line for that, and all the counties make up Region 9. So while there's no direct risk to the county, there is certainly a risk to Region 9 under that situation.
And I just think it looks shady.
Well, yeah,
I
because
just think it looks
I can pretty
backhanded.
much tell you what every board is gonna say if their administrators come and say, hey, whatever your portion there was, you need to cough this up, they're gonna look at you and say,
Travis, we don't have
What?
$699,000.
But then if you're
Be
dealing,
embarrassed
but then
to
if you're
ask.
dealing with a local bank that pledges the letter of credit, I mean, what are they, what, how does the government look in that scenario?
Right. Well,
It's just a,
could've looked
yeah.
worse than shady.
Well, and then the other thing that this board is probably aware of, but people aren't talking too much about, is we could get to June and the federal government's omnibus bill and whether they do or don't lift the debt ceiling and how they handle that whole situation, they might not follow through on their funding commitments. In which case, I need a letter of credit from them saying, I've still got my money to build the network.
Okay,
Right, well,
I think
I
you
think
have
I
our-
understand where this board
I
sits.
think you have our perspective.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, with that, we have come to the end of our agenda. Gentlemen, we are adjourned.